women in history I never heard of and wouldn't be surprised if you haven't either. Today, let's talk about Lulu White. Lulu White was born in 1868 and passed away in 1931. She was ahead of her time when it came to marketing, and she created a brand that was so enticing that no rich, lonely, or not so lonely man could resist. Lulu was a lot of things: Creole, eccentric, beautiful, an entrepreneur, a brilliant businesswoman, likely one of the few Black self-made millionaires from the beginning of the 20th century, a legend in lace and diamonds, and had a criminal record almost as long as a CVS receipt. In fact, sources said she was arrested so often and had so much influence, she was allowed to ride in her private carriage to jail. So there's not a whole lot known about Lulu's early life. And even when people asked her directly, well, yeah, she'd tell them. But depending on the day, they'd probably get a different answer. Sometimes she was from Alabama. Other times she was from the West Indies, because the West Indies made her more exotic and in fashion for the time, which also made her a commodity that white dudes couldn't get enough of. So the general consensus seems to be that she was born on a farm in Alabama, but moved to New Orleans to find her fortune. But Mary, how? Well, her career began in the 1880s when she posed for risque photos. Just in case you don't understand that word, kids, it usually meant little or no clothing to appeal to the male gaze, of course. Okay, y'all caught up now? Excellent. Now, in 1894, she took the money that she had earned on those photos and other risque means of making ends meet. She built a mansion. Rumor had it she spent about $40,000 to have it built and outfitted. That's about $1.4 million in 2025. That's also when she started her love affair with jewelry. Remember Legend in Lace and Diamonds? Keep up. Anyway, now before I go on, I should probably mention this. Back then, mansion was often a euphemism for a brothel. Come on, you know what I mean. Where women could make a living in one of the few fields open to them, and men convinced themselves that since they were paying, they automatically knew exactly how to please those women. I really tried to do that with a straight face. Okay, moving on. Okay, so Lulu ran the most opulent, expensive, and desired mansion in Storyville. That was New Orleans' red light district. Okay, kids, let me explain that one in case you don't know. That was an area that was barely legal, mostly because they were ignored and tolerated by the people those businesses paid. They offered gambling, drinking, entertainment, and Smex was sold openly, including, I know you're going to be scandalized and shocked, to law enforcement. Lulu's place was called Mahogany Hall, and according to her advertisements, the mansion was 4 stories tall. It boasted 5 parlors, one of which was mirrored, 15 bedrooms, each with a private bathroom, and the product: 40 women to choose from. And those women were probably her greatest selling point. Okay, not probably. More like definitely. Yeah, because see, men liked exotic things. Remember, West Indies? They also liked the women that society said weren't worth marrying. The kinds of women that those men's wives weren't supposed to know about. Well, and Lulu also diversified a little bit when she opened up a saloon next door to Mahogany Hall, which of course proved problematic. But I'll get to that. Okay, just for the record on this next part, and all giggling aside, I'm offering a definition and explanation of terminology that was used at the time. I don't fucking agree with any of it. So there was another name by which people called Mahogany Hall: Octoroon Parlor. And Lulu was described as the handsomest octoroon in America. So she capitalized. She hired only other octoroons. Okay, so what the fuck does that term mean? Well, maybe you've heard of the 1-drop rule, where if a person was not only white at every part of their ancestry, then they were considered Black. Because back then, that was considered a huge insult. And octoroons were considered 7 parts white and 1 part Black. So let's get salty, shall we? That term, and several others like it, was yet another way to minimize or outright erase a person's humanhood, to make them inferior, to make them things to be used, never respected. Okay, to be fair, some of those women did sign contracts with wealthy white men, and became kept women. Didn't make them respectable, though. Basically, those men, not only unmarried men, supported the women financially, with strings attached, if you catch my meaning. Okay, moving on from that distasteful bullshit. Apparently, the women that Lulu hired had unparalleled beauty. Remember, exotic. I've said that a few times now. And they were exotic in just the right way for those pigs, I mean men, who visited Mahogany Hall. So yeah, Mahogany Hall made Lulu very rich. But the whole saloon thing, remember I mentioned her CVS receipt? Yeah, Mahogany Hall and the saloon meant she had a lot of violations. You know, run-ins with the kappas. Sorry, it made me laugh even when I typed it, so I have to leave it in. Moving on. So before the 1920s, going all the way back to the 1880s, she was arrested several times for, yeah, prostitution. Well, and for being a madam. That's a woman who runs a brothel, kids. But then, the 1920s. She was repeatedly charged with violating the Volstead Act. Yeah, I didn't know what that was either, so let me give you a brief summary. Volstead was a 1919 law meant to enforce prohibition, which outlawed alcoholic beverages, and ushered in the advent of bootlegging. You can look up that one on your own. At one point, she tried to turn the saloon into a soft drink bar, but it didn't do very well. Ultimately, she cut her losses and sold it. So, 1919, that's where we were. The government forcibly closed Storyville. Sources said that Mahogany Hall sold for $11,000, about $204,000 in 2025. That, kids, is a net loss in 2025 dollars of about $1.2 million. So just like there wasn't a whole lot known about Lulu before Storyville, there ain't a whole lot known about her after either. Most sources said that the woman who once caused a judge to lose his job because he went too easy on her lived out her life in obscure poverty and is believed to have passed away in 1931. Oh, but let's back up just a little bit, because in 1929, there was a song written by Spencer Williams and first recorded by none other than Louis Armstrong. It was called Mahogany Hall Stomp. But even today, Lulu's still around. Some say hers is one of two possible places that inspired this other song. It's called the House of the Rising Sun. There is a house in New Orleans, and Lulu's door faced east. There's the Storyville Museum, a historical marker, and the saloon is still technically standing. Oh, but also, there's Beyonce. Say what? Yeah, seriously. A lot of sources agreed that Beyonce's 2016 song, Formation, was a nod to Mahogany Hall and to the woman who once ruled the red light district as a legend in lace and diamonds.